at the border hit a record in March, and many are left staying at overcrowded facilities as the Biden administration works to figure out how to process the bottleneck.
This weekend, the Congresswoman from Brooklyn and Staten Island, Nicole Malliotakis, was among a group of Republicans who visited the border. She joins us now on what she saw. Nice to have you with us, Congresswoman.
Good morning.
So when you got down to the border, were you given full access? What did you see?
I have to tell you, it was a heartbreaking situation. It was also an infuriating situation. First of all, the first thing I learned was that the cartels, the smugglers, are the ones that are actually running our border. They've been given control by this administration of the border, making $500 million a month, smuggling individuals, and the Customs and Border Protection are completely overrun. They are inundated. They are begging for help. They are begging to have the policies reversed that President Biden put in place this first day via executive order. I think it's incredibly important that the president and the vice president visit this border and see what we saw and hear what we heard directly from the law enforcement that is there. And then when you go to the facilities and you see the migrants, they are, first of all, 250 capacity during COVID at the Donna facility. There are 4,000 people in there. And I put video on my Twitter just showing how the children are literally sleeping on top of each other. And there's no social distancing, there's no COVID testing until they leave the facility. But all of this could have been prevented. 175,000 individuals coming through our border the month of March, and CBP says that it's a diversion. Once they're dealing with the processing, they're dealing with the overseeing these facilities, that the cartels and the smugglers are, infiltrating, gun trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and gun trafficking as well. So that's all coming through the porous parts of our border. And so it's a major criminal operation that is being run. And we can stop this today by just reversing these policies and then taking additional measures that the CBP is recommending. But we had an agreement with Mexico and Guatemala and Honduras to stem this flow of illegal migration, but that was all rescinded on January 20th.
But Congresswoman, I hear the president wants to go back to that agreement once again, very quietly, and get it going, because I mean, it's been heartbreaking for all of us to watch these pictures of these coyotes basically throwing babies over a border wall and abandoning them.
Yes, well, CBP told us if they approach in the Rio Grande, there was a situation a couple weeks ago where they threw a 6-month-old baby in the water to try to divert the attention of the CBP, knowing that they'll save that child and then they'll get away. So this is a major, major issue that we can work on today, first by repealing these executive orders put in place, and then working toward a more robust system in which we have a visa entry-exit system. We need to make sure that we have E-Verify in place. We need to streamline and modernize our immigration system, but we need to have order first. We can't do any of that unless we have order. My mother is a Cuban refugee. When she came to this country, there was a process, there was order. What I saw the other day was disorder and chaos.
So what do you think needs to be done at this point? It can't be solely based upon the previous administration's policy, because that didn't completely work either. There needs to be modifications.
Well, that would immediately stem the flow, and we would go back to pre-January levels, which, by the way, we're talking 175,000 individuals right now. That's a 15-year high. So that is a really unsustainable number. And remember, this is affecting not just the migrants, it's the CBP that are being overrun and don't have the resources and tools. And then in addition, it's the American taxpayers that are paying for all of it. But I think in addition to repealing those executive orders, we need to implement a visa entry-exit tracking system. We need to make sure that we have E-Verify, and we do need to modernize and streamline the immigration system, because people do wait 10 years to become a citizen. Now, let's also understand that a lot of the migrants that are coming over the border, most of their asylum claims are not legitimate. Less than 10%, according to the Department of Public Safety that we spoke to down there, are actually legitimate asylum claims. So we should be pushing for private investment into some of these countries. I know President Biden wants to give more of the taxpayer money. We can't continue to do that. This is unsustainable. We should encourage, though, private investment in these facilities to kind of compete with what China is doing with their Belt and Roads project, which they're making these investments. So I think the private sector we can certainly work with to try to encourage the situation and help stimulate some of their economy as well. But I think the most important thing right now is to make sure we have order at this border, that we go after those cartels, and the president and the administration needs to get down there and see what we saw.
Also,
that is the key. And people can, close BidensBorders.com. I set up a site, and Americans can add their name if they agree with what I'm saying right now.
all right, Congresswoman, we also want to talk about the infrastructure bill that the Biden administration is pushing. I know there's a lot of elements in it that you don't see as infrastructure, things that go beyond buildings and roads and the things that we think of typically.
Yeah, so I pushed very hard to get a seat on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I'm the only New York City member that sits on that committee right now, and I know that the needs of our city and particularly my community of Staten Island and Brooklyn are very robust. Look, we have an aging transportation network. We have shipping ports, ferry terminals. We have so much happening in New York City in terms of transportation needs. I would love to see this package focus on transportation infrastructure first. Of course, broadband is a key thing for rural areas outside of New York, particularly now that we're moving more towards telehealth. But for my purposes, being a representative from New York City, we want to upgrade our subway signals. We have to work on the Gateway project. Staten Island, we'd love to see the Staten Island Expressway, HOV lane finished. We'd love to see our shipping ports be more robust and utilize some of that funding to stimulate our local economy. I know green energy is fine and it's great, and we should encourage that and invest in it, but it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be subsidizing electric cars more than we're spending in this bill on roads, bridges, ports, and airports combined. So basically 25% of this bill only right now is focusing on transportation. I want to see more money focused on transportation. Of course, we have to find a way to pay for it. As Republicans, we always believe we can cut in certain areas that may not be working properly and moving that money here rather than raise taxes or take on additional debt. So I think this is a much larger conversation. I look forward to having it. I do want to work in a bipartisan fashion to get this done. It's why I came to Congress. And at the end of the day, I hope it's going to be a bill that I can support.
So the SALT deduction, we hear some Democrats don't want to sign on for this infrastructure bill unless we get the SALT deduction in New York. Is there a lot of support, or do you think it's going to go through?
Well, we have to wait and see on the SALT. I certainly support restoring this deduction, but I also support the mayor holding the line on property taxes. I've been pushing for a long time for a cap on New York City property taxes. And the governor and the legislature, they have to stop increasing our state taxes to see that they got $50 billion overall in this state for federal aid, and then they increase the taxes regardless and are driving more people out of this state, and the burden falls then on the middle class taxpayers. That's a problem. And so, restoring SALT, which I support, is not an excuse for our mayor and our governor to continue to raise taxes and take money from the hardworking people in this state. And so I believe that there needs to be some type of an agreement there. But certainly I am working with Congressman Tom Suozzi, who's a Democrat from Long Island. We're working together along with others like Garbarino and others upstate who are trying to push for this SALT deduction once again. It would be a big relief for the people of my district.
All right, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis with us this morning. Good to have you back on Good Day.
Thank you.
Good luck in D.C. All right, let's talk about the sports.